Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today I want to talk about Dungeons and Dragons, and I want to talk about a phenomenal comic book that you need to read as a dungeon master. That is 100. That is every dungeon master content. Every dungeon master needs to read this narrative because it's powerful, it's awesome, and it is darn near perfect narrative. And we, as dungeon masters, still have a few things to learn from the paper screen, the big screen, and the small screen. And this, of course, is the paper screen. This is today we're going to talk about Berserker Unbound, and I'm going to tell you about the story Berserker Unbound, which is a Dark Horse comic story that I read, and I got this book from the library. Somebody suggested it, and I got it from the library and read it cover to cover. The version I read was one single bound volume, a complete story, and also this is a phenomenal example of a fantastic one shot. Right, just really, really amazing one shot. This is how to do a one shot in Dungeons and Dragons. But spoilers for all of Berserker Unbound here. All right. So what is Berserker Unbound? So actually, it's Conan. So it's made by Dark Horse, and it's the entire thing is in one slim volume in a graphic novel, full color, beautifully illustrated, and extremely well written. Right, and it's simply Conan, but Dark Horse doesn't have the rights to Conan, so they couldn't make it a Conan story. By the way, Conan is being printed on Marvel's side right now and is very expensive. It's extremely expensive to tell a story with Conan the Barbarian. So this guy is Conan in every single way but name, right? And actually, in this, he's just called the Berserker, but he's this huge He-Man sized warrior who carries around this gigantic sword and a gigantic axe, right? And is dressed exactly like Conan in every Conan the Barbarian in every other way, right? So Conan is in his world, and we open up with him fighting all these Northmen, and he slays like literally 40 guys come around him, and he just slays all of them, right? And he goes berserk with his sword and kills them all, right? And so then this evil wizard who's taking over his world, his fantasy world, Hyperborea, whatever it is, right? Comes along and actually sends him to this central deserted place with runes on the wall. And it's a circular room, and it has all these runes on the wall. And the Berserker, Conan, by any other name, touches one of the rooms, and he's taken to our world right now, right? And so he comes through in our world, and he's brought through into the woods, close to a city. And the city is not named. It could be Chicago, it could be Philadelphia, it could be Miami, it could be any of these, right? And so basically, it could have been any of those cities. And so we get to the point where he's in this city. Actually, he's on the perimeter. He's in the forest around a city, and he meets a homeless guy, right? And he starts to talk to the homeless guy, and the homeless guy's like, "I can't understand your language." So just to be clear, the entire story, they cannot speak each other's language, right? So this was really interesting, but both characters continue to speak to each other, even though neither one can understand the other one's language. And I thought this was really beautiful because it means like, hey, even if somebody can't understand you, that doesn't mean that you shouldn't talk to them. And the reason why is they might not be able to understand your language, but they can understand your tone, your cadence, there's a lot. And speaking to someone, just using your words, even if they don't understand those words, can be a powerful form of communication. And this was a beautiful depiction that only that your words being understood intellectually is not the only way you communicate. This was extremely well done. I was really blown away with what a fantastic job they did with this. It was really quite excellent. So so he meets this homeless man, and this homeless man, he's a drunk, and he lives by himself in the woods, And the reason why he lives by himself, alone in the woods, and is homeless and is drunk, is because he can't function anymore because his wife and child died in a car accident. Now, Conan, like the Berserker, his wife and child were killed while he was away at war. So the two of them, kind of, so they're the same man, just from different worlds, right? So basically, he meets this homeless guy, and this homeless guy just shares his beans with him, around a fire, and binds his wounds with some bandages, right? That because the homeless guy has some bandages from a kit somebody gave him, right? And then at that point, they finish the night out, and the homeless guy is like, "Hey, it's the beginning. It's the beginning of the week, and the homeless shelter will have some food. We can go get some food for free, and also we'll be able to do something else in the city." So they go into the city together, but first they take this dirty old blanket and cover up this Conan guy, this Berserker, right? And the reason why is he looks crazy ripped, right? He looks like He-Man. And he has a gigantic sword on his back and a gigantic axe, right? And he's not going to get rid of either one, right? Because these are his life. He's a reaper. He's an absolute reaper. He like when he goes into combat, he goes berserk and he kills 40 guys against him. It's like Samson with the jawbone, right? Like it's very Conan-esque, right? So they go into the city together. They have a meal together at this homeless shelter. And what's interesting is the Conan guy is like, "Oh my gosh, your world," they go in and actually he sees, like, and actually this is very much, I think, like San Francisco. I think there's a couple cities now that are like this in America that have gigantic shanty towns, right? Actually, not even shanty towns. They have like people who live on the street. Like there's like literally blocks and blocks and blocks of people who are living on the street with no plumbing, no running water. They live in cardboard boxes and tents, right? And so the Berserker, in his own language, but he says it to the homeless guy. He's like, "Oh my gosh, what evil wizard has devastated your world?" And I was like, "Oh, it's President Joseph Biden." Yeah, woo, okay, right. So it was, yeah, but it was a good line in the book. So at this point, and then the homeless guy brings him, and they just get some soup and some bread and they eat, right? But then the homeless guy goes to a liquor store, right? And he's got and he gets some Thunder Ripple, and it's like $5, and he puts down $4.73. And the guy's like, "You're short. I'm not selling this to you because you're 27 cents short." And the guy's like, and the guy starts to get upset, and he starts to yell at the homeless guy gets upset, and he starts yelling at the storekeep. And then the Berserker, he comes up and he just pulls out a single gold coin, right? And the storekeep is smart enough to know it's real gold, takes it, and they're able to take the bottle away, right? I thought that was pretty good, right? And it was also very sad, like, that this homeless guy was just saving for like weeks to get $5 to get a bottle of Thunder Ripple. That was very sad. And by the way, there's a lot of pathos in this, a lot of sorrow. It's a beautiful, beautiful story, right? So at this point, they go back up into the woods and they get around the fire and they just share the bottle together, right? And at this point, they do find one word in common, and that is buddy, right? So the Berserker guy understands that this guy has given him food, he's bandaged him, and now he's shared his drink with him, which the Berserker calls bead, right? And again, they can't speak each other's language. But he realizes that this homeless guy is his friend and his ally, right? So then they're in the woods and some guys come from the city, and you get the idea that they're like probably kind of like addicted to some substance and violent and mean, right? And so the Berserker is just off in the woods, I guess relieving himself or something, and comes back and sees these guys have smashed a bottle and they're trying to rob this poor homeless person, right? And those other guys are homeless too, I think. Just not as nice, I guess, right? Yeah. And not violent thieves, right? Like, he's not a violent thief, right? Like, and these two are, right? And so, so Conan comes back, and he don't have the blanket on. He's just got a giant sword and an axe on his back, and he literally just shouts for them to leave in his own language, and they do. They just run off. And I was like, yeah, that's about how that would happen, right? Like, if you something came out, and all he's got on is a loincloth, and he's got a giant axe on his back and a giant sword, and he looks like jacked, like, you ain't gonna stick around, right? So they don't. So they run off. Okay. Next thing that happens is finally the evil wizard who exiled the Berserker to this world comes through, and he brings 40 more Northmen, right? So the same scene from the beginning repeats, and the Northmen actually get wrecked. He kills all of them, and then finally it's just him and the evil wizard. But the evil wizard comes up and gets a knife, and he takes and he captures the homeless man, and he puts his knife to him, and he's like, hey, don't come forward, Berserker, because I'm going to kill your friend here, right? And the homeless guy then, like, pushes him back, and then the evil wizard blasts him full on with an eldritch blast to his heart, right? But it doesn't do anything, because the evil wizard's magic does not work on this world. So then the wizard's so shocked that the homeless guy is able to take his knife from him and stab him, right, and kill the evil wizard, right? And so the hero of the story is the drunk homeless guy who, actually, he was not drunk when he killed the evil wizard, and he's like, actually, no, he's still a drunk, because at the end, yeah, he's still addicted to alcohol. That's a better way to say it, right? So at this point, but Berserker is like, whoa, you killed the evil wizard, right? It is really excited. And then there's the portal that the wizard had left is closing, and Conan, Berserker, is like, hey, I'm going through, this portal, and still the regular guy can't understand him, and he's like, hey, why don't you come with me? And this guy's like, yeah, I should come with you, because there ain't nothing here. My wife and child are dead. Let's go to your world, right? So they go back to the circular world, right? And at that point, they get to the point where they can get to this. They go back to the circular room with all the runes on the wall, and now that they're in this central space, they can speak each other's language. And the Conan guy is like, hey, we can go anywhere we want now. On my world, my wife and kid are dead. On your world, your wife and kid are dead. But we can travel to all these worlds, right? And we'll go, and maybe we can do good the way we did in your world, right? And so then that's it. They go to, touch the next rune and travel on together. It was a phenomenal story. I really loved it. I was blown away by how much emotion. It was intellectually sound. The story made sense. It was emotionally satisfying. And I even felt there was some spiritual, the community of these two, right? Them loving one another the way they would love themselves, right? Was also a spiritual strength in the story. It was phenomenally good. If you're a dungeon master, read Berserker Unbound so that you know how to tell a serious, concise, solid story. Every single word you just heard is my humble opinion on Berserker Unbound and Dungeons & Dragons. The important part is when I get to hear your humble opinion on Berserker Unbound and Dungeons & Dragons in the comments below. Please consider subscribing, and have a fetch millennium.